Folks, welcome on in to this. What do we call this? An experimental class, experiential class, a test class,
Sample
uh,
class, mock class, we've used various nomenclature.
and of course, it's not really a mock class because if it was a mock class, I would have you for 2.5 hours at night later than this. But this is a close facsimile to what might be a mock class or what you might experience with me as a professor talking about a topic that I talk about a lot. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen as we do in a Zoom world. Hopefully everybody, I would ask you to chat and let me know if you can see that, but we have already established that is not going to work. But I'm going to assume that you can see that. Oh, it's disabled. That's so disappointing, but that's okay. I will read off people's questions, answers, comments. Let me know about the vest. If you want to know where I got it, I can tell you. And welcome to my conversation about aligning experiences for better designs. I think before I jump in, Kyle, did you want to do like a quick little intro of me that we kind of prearranged?
No, I think you're. I think
All right. You're
yeah,
good?
okay. You have yours. I think. Yeah.
All right, I'll go ahead. Well, I'll say that my name is Professor Gary David. I am a sociologist by training. I have a PhD in sociology. I've been at Bentley now for 26 years. This is my 26th year at Bentley. I've been teaching in the HFID program for about maybe 16 or 17 years. I have no formal training in user experience, so thank you for attending my TED Talk. I do have done work. I'm not going to talk as much about my work, but I've done work in customer experience, especially in intercultural environments. So a lot of my work is on employee experience and customer experience, although I have done work in the UX space. And by work, I mean consulting work, because along with being an academic, this is my full-time job. I also do consulting work and speaking work. I'll get into a little bit more about that. I've also done work on learning experiences and patient experiences as well, which is why I'm so I place such an emphasis on this idea of aligning experiences, which I will talk about a bit more here, and you can get a flavor of it. These are the classes I teach here at Bentley as part of the experience design department and the grad school. I teach at the undergraduate level our designing experiences course, which is a foundational course in experience design, which I'm not the only one who teaches it, but I did design it. I at least designed, I was the first person to teach it after designing the course as our foundations course for our XD majors. It says IDCC there, but the department is renamed to experience design. I also teach ENV 603. It's actually, I got to update the slides. SOCH 603, employee experience. I teach that in as part of our asynchronous MBA program, which students in the HFID program can take for HFID credit. And I also teach the HF 785 course, which is ethnography for experience design, which is the course that Kyle had me for last semester. Where I am an ethnographer. Ethnographers study groups and cultures and then create descriptions to communicate their findings to broader audiences. And we do this in experience design to help create better designs, to help create better ideas of what people need and what will work for them given the context in which they exist. And so when I teach this course I teach in the spring semester. I encourage students to do their own ethnographic projects to really understand how they can use ethnography to help with their experience design, no matter where they're doing that, whether it be user, customer, employee, patient, learning, etc. I also am the host of Experience Design Podcast, where we explore experience designs of all kinds. I have been doing this podcast for 6 years now, coming on 6 years. 144 episodes, be 145 on Friday. I am now launching a new episode every week where I talk with experienced designers from across different sectors, industries, and areas. And one of the reasons why I like doing that, and Kyle can attest to this, is I bring all of that into the classroom. So one of the ways I keep my class content current is by talking to professionals who are engaged in experience design work. And the way I define experience design is very broad. I don't define experience design as user experience. They're not the way in which I talk about it, they're not the same. Experience design, the way I talk about it, is more of a general practitioner approach in healthcare or being a physician. A GP, has to have an understanding in general, and then they can specialize in different areas. So for me, user experience is a specialized application of experience design principles, just as customer experiences, employee experience, et cetera, et cetera. You can get this wherever you get podcasts, except for YouTube, because they took down my channel for a community violation, which they never told me what it was. So if anybody here works for YouTube, please hit me up because I have no idea what happened and why my podcast channel was taken down. But you can get it everywhere else you get podcasts. And I want to start out with, it's a little bit difficult because I can't see you, you can see me, but and we can't use chat, but many of you might know what Mad Libs. I'll use Kyle. Kyle, do you know what Mad Libs is?
Yeah.
Kyle knows what Mad Libs is. For those who don't know, it was a way we used to entertain ourselves in the before times, when we didn't have technology in the car on long road trips, and we had no other way of occupying our time other than looking for Volkswagens and hitting each other in the arm and saying slug bug. And the way Mad Libs works is one person would say to another person, give me an adjective, give me a noun, give me an adverb, give me a verb. And they would fill it out, and then they would read the story, the words around those, uh, verbs, nouns, adverbs, adjectives, and it would be fun and nonsensical and hilarious. And this is called my childhood. And so what we are seeing right now is we're living in an age of what I call the, Mad Libs experience age, in that almost everything is an experience. People are using the term blank experience, client experience, community experience, customer experience, user experience, digital experience, brand experience, stakeholder experience, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, healthcare experience, patient experience, administrator experience. You all might know what I mean, that there's a lot going on in which people are using this concept of blank experience as a way to think about how are we engaging with our audiences and how are they perceiving that engagement, and then what memories are they forming about that engagement to create a lasting impact and impression. All right. So experience design right now, especially, is really hot. And it's not just UX, but it goes across industry, not only in for-profit industry, but also nonprofit industry, community industry, healthcare, education, etc. So given the increased interest in experience design, there is now the challenge of how do we pull together all of these experience channels in order to create aligned and integrated experiences. One of the things I'll talk about is how companies do not connect their experience designs. Customer experience may not be connecting with user experience. Employee experience may not be connecting with customer or user experience. The digital experience may not be connecting with customer experience or even user experience, et cetera, et cetera. None of it may be connecting with community experience or broader stakeholder experience. So this creates a big challenge for organizations because it's like if everyone in the boat was rowing in different directions and with different length oars. You might move forward, but you're not going to move forward very quickly, and it's going to be a lot of frustration in doing so. And so when we talk about this age of experience, we have this very, oh, the chat works, yay, this very challenging environment around how do we create integrated experiences. And as an example of this, I want to talk about Starbucks. I'm sure you're familiar with the brand Starbucks. And Starbucks was originally envisioned as a place, and I'm old enough to remember when Starbucks first opened, when I'm from Detroit. I remember when it first happened, where a customer could experience a new kind of cafe environment, which included names, sights, smells, and an overall welcoming vibe. I remember when ordering at Starbucks, and it's like, what's a venti? What's a grande? What is this naming system? It was a new kind of thing. It wasn't just selling coffee, it was selling an experience. It was selling a place where one could engage in the imbibing of coffee and other delectable treats that they had on offer, as well as just hang out. I mean, if you think about a cafe historically, cafes were places in which people could come, connect, discuss, debate, share news, form community. It's a place where revolutions were launched or at least discussed. It's a place where discoveries were made by academics debating different topics. So cafes served a central important function in civil society. And Starbucks, as an experience, was trying in many ways to rekindle this kind of phenomena. They were trying to create this experience beyond just the product and into the space and all that was decorated around it. Ray Oldenburg talks about how third places are able to provide community experiences that allows strangers and friends to meet and engage with one another in between work and home. So this idea of a third place, some of you may have heard before. Ray Oldenburg, a sociologist. And this dynamic is key to building civic connection. So not only was Starbucks trying to create a customer experience, but it was trying to create a kind of community experience that went beyond just the customer, beyond that touch point of purchasing a coffee or a cappuccino or whatever you're purchasing. It was creating space for people to exist and share and become part of the community to the extent that even, and it's not a small detail, there's a community board in Starbucks where community happenings can be posted, right? Or where community artwork could be displayed. So there was a real attempt, and you can look at the origins of Starbucks to look at this to create a community space and a certain kind of community experience. Starbucks was also originally known as an employee first kind of company where, you guessed it, employee experience was prioritized as a key factor in creating positive customer experience. I've done professional talks on the linkage between employee experience and customer experience. And essentially, if you want to improve customer experience, you have to begin with employee experience. That's where it starts. Your employees are your internal customers. And when I teach the employee experience course, this is at the core of a lot of what I talk about. If you think your employees are not customers, you're doing it wrong. And if you make your employees, if you provide them with a better environment to not just work, but to develop themselves professionally and personally, if you do that, you're going to improve customer experience. You can, however, try to improve customer experience at the detriment to your employees. And anybody in chat want to like plus one that for any experiences you've had where the customer experience came at the loss of the employees. It actually detracted from the employees. And that creates a real problem. Not Bentley, though. I was wondering about you, Kyle. He was a little bit too quick to be like, yeah, I know I work at a place like that. I'm like, wait, where do you work? I'm on to you. 2010, Starbucks implemented a free Wi-Fi policy for customers, creating both an enhanced customer experience, user experience, and digital experience, I would argue. This is from 2010, Fast Company. We're very excited to announce that coming July 1st, free, one click, right? User experience, no registration Wi-Fi at all US locations. Woohoo! So that's pretty cool. So you can go there and use Wi-Fi. And you can go there and drink coffee. And you can go there and talk to other people. The seats are comfortable. They're designed in a way to encourage interaction and conversation. Then, and I'm jumping timeline here a bunch. Starbucks launched their mobile app as a way to satisfy changing customer habits for a more fast-paced lifestyle, as well as with the hope of increasing sales introducing user experience, right? So it's this idea of, you know what, we want to enhance the customer experience through this user experience of our mobile app. And I don't know how many of you use the mobile app. I have never used the Starbucks mobile app. Never once. I don't know if that makes me a Luddite, but I'm just very happy going in there and talking to somebody. But we have this new mobile experience as well as the drive-through. And why that becomes important, let me talk a little bit and reflect here a little bit. That is not the original experience intention of the space. Okay. We see Starbucks moving away from this idea of enhancing the customer experience in the environment as a place where people can go and hang out and interact and talk and share into a place where you come in, get the product, and then leave. Maybe detracting a bit from the customer experience, as we can talk about, but enhancing the user experience, if that makes sense for folks. You get a free drink if you download it, I believe. Well, now you tell me, Sandra. That's how they get you. That's how they get you. It's like going on to those gambling apps and they give you free money to gamble with. That's it's like, getting the samples at Costco. And then next thing you know, you're buying $200 worth of stuff you're never going to eat and have no room for in your refrigerator. So we have this user experience going up, maybe at the detriment of aspects of the customer experience and the community experience. And guess what? Has anybody seen anything like this? I don't know how you feel about when you walk in there and you see this and you're trying to find your drink. Feel free to put it in chat what goes through your mind, right? Overwhelmed, Nina. I like, yeah, absolutely overwhelmed. And now you got people touching all over your drink trying to find their name or whatever name they put on there. People steal drinks. Alexa, no, they don't. Do they really? I can just go in there. Well, I guess they're out. It's like have a penny, leave a penny. It's just there on the counter. I can just take a penny. I can just take a drink. And so you have these, the presentation here leaves a little bit to be desired, I would say. Oh, and by the way, one of the things, and anybody else notice this? That they don't always put the little cardboard thing around the hot coffee, hot drinks now. You have to ask for it. Anybody else notice that? That was one I've been seeing recently. That's not helping with customer experience. And it's certainly not helping the employee experience because now the employee has to deal with that with a customer. So we see this. Mobile orders then impacted the customer experience in terms of the environment and how people interacted with these touch points. I would be a little embarrassed saying my order to a barista, so I'm grateful for the app. That's fair, Danica. I don't know if you want to share why you're embarrassed, but if you'd like to share, we can talk about it. Plus, most of the time, I do appreciate how I can get my order in and out quickly. And I love that comment because now we're getting into the trade-offs, right? And the point here is of looking at, and I'll jump ahead a little bit, not that we're going to design to satisfy all people, but we need to be aware of the systemic impacts on the experiences these changes can have. And that becomes a crucial thing to me, at least. I'm a sociologist. I think in terms of systems and I think in terms of levels. And this idea of, well, if we're increasing this over here, what's it doing to this thing over there? What's the impact going to be? Employees are too busy to keep track of mobile orders. We're going to get to that one absolutely as well. Is it then helping an environmental friendly experience? I am alluding to the cups without the holder. I love that, Virginia. And I will get to something on that point. But one of the things, and this goes to information design, if people don't realize what you're doing because you didn't tell them, did it happen? If I am doing this because of environmental considerations, but I don't know, then it's left to me to create an explanation. This is why in hotels, they will say, because of environmental considerations, we don't wash your towels every day, right? Or we aren't going to change your sheets every day. If you want your new sheets, let us know. Starbucks in recent years hasn't made it feel like a place to hang out. Yep. And we're Danica, I shared my slide with you apparently because that's exactly what we're going for. Let people know what it is you're doing and why. One of the areas that, and I've done consulting work on this, where companies can drop the ball, is a lack of transparency. Not that they're trying to hide something, but that they're not vocal in the intent of their design. They're relying on people to make sense of it on their own, and that's a bad strategy because you don't, and I did see this in my dissertation research. You can't rely on people to make sense of something in the same way that you intend it. And that's where perception comes in as part of experience design. The interaction with and the perception of. Custom orders were another way Starbucks tried to create a customized experience for customers. Part of customer experience can be customization. However, coupled with social media and an emergent digital experience, things got a little out of hand. So you had people trying to get TikTok views based on their crazy mobile orders that they wanted to show off and get likes for. Not the only reason, obviously, but that was part of the phenomena. And if has anybody seen this on TikTok? People going there and doing these crazy orders and then talking about it on the camera. And this idea of you can get a drink customized however you want. What did that do to employee experience? Well, what then happened? Were there secret menus? What's that?
There was a lot of advertisements where people on social media would talk about like, oh, ask for this secret menu item, and they would talk about this, and then you'd go to the store, and this happened to more than just Starbucks, but you'd go and be like, oh, I want to get this item off the secret menu, and the employees would just look at you like you have two heads and be like, that's not a thing. We don't have a secret menu. And then some capitalized on it and actually did create a secret menu, but yeah.
Part of experience design, as we're talking about, and as we'll talk about it as a complex system, is that it's a nonlinear environment. And so these feedback loops are not closed. Okay, they're open feedback loops that can be influenced by a lot of different factors, which is why experience design is not a one and done kind of thing. It's a constant monitoring kind of thing. And this is where companies can fail in their experience design strategy because it's like, okay, one and done, we launched it, it's finished. No, because of the way these things are open-ended and they're not closed feedback loops and the complex ways in which all of this can interact, they require constant monitoring, which we'll get to. Starbucks baristas say they're fed up with complex custom drink orders that converge on the ridiculous. One said they were asked to blend egg bites into a drink. There's actually a website where you can just hit a button and it will create a nonsensical Starbucks order. It's pretty funny, actually. So we got this going on. This is in 2021. And guess what employees started to do? They started to go on TikTok and complain about the orders they had to do. So then you had this whole, you know, digital experience from employee experience based on the customer experience, which was a customizable experience. However, now, just like when the unicorn frappuccino was a huge thing, baristas talked on social media how much they hated making it. Yeah, Aviana, absolutely. And so now we have a new Starbucks CEO. I don't know if anybody's been watching this. It's been kind of interesting. On one of my live streams on Twitch, I was looking at this. How Back to Starbucks is reshaping every aspect of the what now? Kyle, what were those two last words?
Coffee house experience.
Coffee house experience. From reinvigorating coffee house culture, ethnography, to offering the best jobs in retail, employee experience, to recentering the focus on coffee and human connection, human-centered design, a look at how Starbucks is reconnecting with its roots, which we talked about, while evolving for the future. So now they're starting to look at this from a not just going back, it's not going back to its roots, but like with a complex system, it's spiraling upward. It's evolving, but coming back around at a higher level, given the new technologies that are available and the new realities that are available. Nina says they closed more than 20 in Boston recently. They were protests, and I had friends who worked there. Oh, that's too bad. They said it was an awful experience and dealing with these custom orders was impossible. Yeah, I knew someone on Twitch actually who live streamed, not from Starbucks, but he was a barista and he would talk about that too. The energy from both users and enjoyers quickly turned very hostile. Yeah, users and customers. Yeah. Yeah. And so we had this disconnection between customer, employee, user, digital, brand, all of these things. Starbucks reverses its open door policy requiring people to make a purchase if they want to stay. Now it should say under new leadership, Starbucks is now taking a new approach in terms of how it looks at customer experiences, community experiences, user experiences, digital experiences, employee experiences, and overall brand experience. It is interesting. I do want to highlight coffee and human connection. Well, I don't know what Virginia, I don't know how you operate in the morning, but sometimes I need coffee before human connection. But maybe that's just me. It's like when my kids come to me and they want to talk to me before I've had coffee, I'm like, look, I can't do parenting experience right now. Daddy needs a little ramp up time first. You don't drink coffee? I'd be curious to see the numbers for international locations. Great question, Danica. And this goes into ethnography as well. It was funny. Once Bentley used to have a degree program in Bahrain, which is just outside of Saudi Arabia and the Arab Peninsula. And I went to the Starbucks at the Seif Mall in Bahrain in Manama, and it looked just like the Starbucks everywhere else. So I started to think about I should either take a picture of myself in every Starbucks I visit or just take a picture of one Starbucks and print it out like 10 times and put a different label on it because they all kind of look the same, which, is that partly brand and is it partly culture? How can we integrate these things? I mean, McDonald's has been fascinating. Taco Bell has been fascinating of how they've re-envisioned the interior. And if anybody's ever seen the TV shows like Bar Rescue or Restaurant Impossible or Kitchen Nightmares, everything is about the experience, whether mundane, whether mindful, whether meaningful, or whether metamorphic. My typology of four kinds of experiences. And I have a YouTube channel. If you look for Gary David, PhD on YouTube, you can see my YouTube channel where I have some of this content. It's a really great question around how we engage all these elements, all these touch point things into an overall comprehensive experience, which is part of my ethnography class. I do want to draw your attention to, if I come over here, I got to highlight things somewhere here. Is that it? That's it. If I get the laser pointer, this. Does anybody remember this? The new rules reverse an open door policy put in place in 2018 after two black men were arrested in Philadelphia Starbucks where they had gone for a business meeting. The incident at the individual store, which had a policy of asking non-paying customers to leave, was caught on video and was a major embarrassment for the company. So again, community experience as part of the brand, right? This idea of an open door policy. Some Starbucks have, a limit on how much Wi-Fi you can use now. Some places, I know McDonald's has done this rather than having comfortable seating. The seating is made comfortable enough to stay for a certain period of time, but is meant to be uncomfortable for prolonged periods of time. So that people can sit, but not too long. Starbucks Japan came out with a book this year talking about their different store designs. That's fascinating, Sandra. That's really interesting. And this is what I love about experience design, right? Because it is literally everything. Literally everything. Dunkin', for those in the Boston area, Dunkin' Donuts, fascinating rebrand. And I've talked about some rebranding stuff on my podcast. They went for a new design, but stayed within kind of the same brand family in terms of colors, in terms of scheme. But they really, I think Dunkin' Donuts went up into where Starbucks was, and Starbucks came down into where Dunkin' Donuts traditionally was. Did other Nina's asking, did other fast food coffee chain business changes accelerate these changes in user experience, potentially due to competition, for instance? It's an interesting question. You do start to see this kind of convergence effect, I guess I could call it, where people will start to adapt or adopt similar kinds of strategies, which then leaves the opportunity for creating better overall integrated experiences as folks are kind of devolving to the least common denominator. Which the thing about experience design, which I find fascinating, is that the wow experiences of today become the mundane experiences of tomorrow because it starts to be what people expect. And so then there's the potential need to either just excel at that space or try to figure out how to move beyond that space to differentiate. There's not a right or wrong answer there, but it does create that. This is why experience design is core to strategy. Experience design is core to strategy. And if a company isn't thinking about their experience design in a strategic way, they are not leveraging the potential impact it can have on their business and brand and success. For sure. And we could look at, from an experience design standpoint, in my class, we kind of do. Experience design should be a competitive advantage, absolutely. If you look at going into different environments to start to reverse engineer, take apart the elements of what the current experience is, then we can start to think about how do we create, either enhance those current experiences or elevate those experiences in ways small. I always encourage people to start small and impactful versus complex and impossible. Companies very often, and academia is the worst at this, want to go complex and impossible when there's plenty of opportunity to start small and be impactful. And so I always encourage people to find the easiest thing you can do to have the greatest impact in the shortest amount of time. Start there and build from there. Starbucks, and I love this one, Starbucks is limiting mobile orders to reclaim the coffee house's connection with customers. As part of CEO Brian Nichols' effort to turn around the coffee giant's lagging sales, so this is having an impact on their bottom line, the degradation in experience, I would say. Starbucks is lowering the number of drinks in a mobile order from 15 to 12. Other recent changes include adding ceramic mugs for people who want to stay and drink their beverages, a revamped code of conduct, and a plan to reduce the menu by 30%. So they've stopped the customized orders. You can't customize it however you want. That's one of the things the CEO said, this back to Starbucks kind of movement, along with these other elements. One of the things that I find fascinating, some Starbucks locations will actually turn off mobile ordering because they couldn't keep up with demand. Thank you, Kyle, because of this. If I walk into a business and I see a line at the register, I can automatically start essentially benchmarking my expectations to that line, to that queue, right? If I see a line, I know it's going to take a certain amount of time versus if I walk in and see no line. One of the problems with mobile ordering and the drive-throughs is, guess what? I don't see the line. There's a line. It's just not visible. It's not made visible to me. As a walk-in customer, I have no way of orienting to it. And so there might be a huge mobile order line. How would I know? I wouldn't. There might be a huge drive-through line. I may not know that either. All I see is nobody in line. So my expectation is I should be able to get my thing fast, my drink fast. Expectations are a critical part of experience design. And so if I expect it to be quick and then it's delayed, I can get frustrated. If I expect it to be long, I might be frustrated, but at least I have an account as to why. Or I might make the decision to leave. Kyle,
Yeah, it's such an interesting topic, and you're bringing me back to class and wanting to contribute because
go
it made me
please.
think of like 10 different things. But you know, the waiting lines, like having a line and being able to see a line allows a customer to self-regulate, right? They get to determine
Yep.
whether the experience is worth waiting without it reflecting negatively or impacting brand perceptions. Whereas, like, I've ordered things from Uber before. This was like a little bit after the pandemic kind of opened up. I ordered from a sushi restaurant before, and my food sat there for an hour and a half because there were no Uber drivers. And there was like no communications, and Uber just kept saying, "It's coming, it's coming, it's coming." And it's like, well, they didn't know there was no Uber drivers, or like to your point, I don't always know if there's no orders. But one thing that Bentley does with its Grubhub for Einstein, when you go to order, it actually will tell you how many orders are ahead of you, and it will tell you which orders are in progress and which orders are not. And so all your thoughts just connected there.
Visibility of system, exactly, Danica. And it is interesting to see how pandemic attitudes affected towards a grab and go kind of orientation and culture. And there's nothing wrong with that. Grab and go is fine. But what's the brand? What is the brand? And what are we trying to go for? We can't be all things to all people. Are we going to just compete on convenience and product? Then you're not competing on experience necessarily. You might be losing that competitive thing. If you look at Pine and Gilmore's work, I don't necessarily love all of it, but about their model of economic progression, this idea of competing on a product versus an experience, people might have a set amount they'll pay for a product, but that amount they're willing to pay is going to increase if they're paying for an experience. Why don't they start using physical reward cards? Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I never really got into points, honestly. Except for, I do have an Amazon Visa card, so I guess I do get into points. But I don't know. I don't know why that is, Alexa. It's a good question. The Starbucks employee expects the customer will go online and order and know what they want. And on the other hand, the customer expects a more expeditious service, expeditious service. English is not good for me, which obviously not always works as expected. Absolutely. And this will get into the complexity of the experience ecosystem. And I love the point, Sarah, that it's not always obvious. And the question becomes, well, why not? Can we make a sign? Can we create, as part of the app, how long the wait is going to be? Sometimes hiding the line isn't good. Disney World are masters at hiding the line because they make the waiting in line an experience by developing all this stuff to look at and engage with while you're in line, so you don't see how long it is. But sometimes seeing how long a line is can be very useful because, as Kyle said, it helps people self-regulate and make decisions. A new expectation is right, Nina. Absolutely. People want nothing. What's frustrating about a delay at an airport is not just the delay, but what? Why? Why am I delayed? What's going on? Why is no one telling me anything? Give me a reason. When people aren't given a reason, they will make one for themselves, and it's usually not going to be positive. Just saying. And so we get into this experience kind of ecosystem between, this idea of the employee experience, the stakeholder or the shareholder experience, maybe what the shareholder wants, what the employee wants, what the customer wants, what the suppliers might want, what the community wants, what the planet wants from a sustainability perspective, right? What the user wants, or what the digital wants, and what the user wants. And this is where it becomes really complex. And in my opinion, the job of the experience designer is translating that complexity into action. It's being able to assess all of this and then make a path forward that either aligns with strategy or improves and enhances or directs strategy. So the goal for experience engineers is to develop strategies to create and explore integrated experiences. If you touched a stove that's hot, you don't rely on your eye to go, wow, that looks really hot, and it looks like your skin is blistering. Yeah, it sure does feel hot. What's that sound? Is that my skin on, frying up to a nice crisp? What's that smell? Smells like smoke and me. And I want, wonder if it tastes like chicken, right? No, it all doesn't happen independently. It all is brought together as a thing that the brain is able, ideally, to process very quickly. And pardon me for kind of bastardizing a little bit of neuroscience, but bear with me with the example. If we were working siloed, we would be at greater risk of injury because it would take longer for all of these pieces of information to coalesce into, or all these pieces of data, I should say, to coalesce as information. But guess what? How many organizations operate exactly that way? CX doesn't talk to UX. UX and CX don't talk to EX, employee experience. Supplier experience, for instance, or stakeholder experience, or shareholder experience, digital experience, et cetera, et cetera. So the experience designer on an enterprise level, or the strategy of experience design at an enterprise level, is to integrate these things. And this is why I call it going to XI, experience integration. The future of experience research and design lies in how we integrate experiences and contexts across experiential channels. This is me talking here. This is my prediction. And this is what I like to talk about in my class and where, as a department, I think we're going. I don't know if anybody ever saw a Spinal Tap before. And I should have done, let me do a new share here. Share computer sound stereo. Okay, there we go. Let me see here. Um,
If we need that extra push over the cliff, you know what we do?
can you hear that?
Put it up to 11.
11, exactly. One louder.
Why don't you just make 10 louder and make 10 be the top number and make that a little louder?
These go to 11.
So in this scene, he's talking about his amplifiers are so special because they go to 11 and not 10. All right. So if people have seen Spinal Tap, it's a great movie. I know there was a new version that came out, but the original is fantastic. So going to 11, XI in Roman numerals, right, is about going to the next level. It's about going beyond where things are right now, going more than 10, right, into 11, the idea of experience integration. And thinking about the complexity of the experience ecosystem in a way that becomes manageable. And thinking about experience ecosystems as these kinds of landscapes, right? With their complications, their histories, their relationships, their features, all of these elements that are relevant to our work as experience designers. I'm not going to dig into a lot of detail here about complex systems theory, but dancing landscapes are infinitely complex environments in which the context shifts and changes as the problem is being studied. Changes happen through your own influence on the environment, as well as random impacts on the environment. Long study does not necessarily produce results. How many organizations go about doing their experience design strategies over long periods of time? Academia. So as we're studying the thing, you know what? We need to set up a task force, an ad hoc committee of the subcommittee of the executive task force to strategically assess, and you're like, by the time you meet, things have already changed because it is a complex environment. It's a dancing landscape like sand dunes. They're constantly shifting. And so this creates an exciting opportunity for experience design to manage that dancing landscape as the changes occur and to be more responsive, as well as mapping it long term. So you can do both. This is from a really nice book called Thinking in Systems by Donella Meadows. A system is a set of things interconnected in such a way that they produce their own pattern of behavior over time. Kyle can attest to the fact that when I teach ethnography, it's very much in this spirit, right? Looking at the patterns of behavior over time that are locally and contextually produced. And then understanding those features in such a way that we can engage in this strategic experience design. We can turn complexity into action so that we can better align these channels. Not that we're going to please everybody, but that at least when we don't please everybody, we know why. and it just doesn't happen. And then you're left with Starbucks going, what happened? What, like, where did this go on? And so that's the time I have for you all. It was kind of like a rush job. I wanted to leave time for questions and answers if people had them. And Kyle can feel free, because Kyle's a great co-host, to ask any questions. If you have any questions about this, you can email me at gdavid@bentley.edu. I'm not going to tell you that's a typical class I would give because it was kind of rushed, but I will tell you that the way in which I go about doing this is very much how I like to teach a class. It's very interactive. There's a lot of, I try to be funny. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it gets me into trouble, although I try not to. And it's just a way of trying to establish a community of learning where people can share their own perspectives and insights as we learn from each other.
Yeah, and I just want to echo those insights in that, this program at Bentley is really dialogue driven. It's experience driven. It's you learn through doing, right? And the best way to learn is through engagement. And so I think Gary is particularly adept at creating an environment for that. But I think you will come to find, if you decide to enroll here at Bentley, that that's the experience you're going to get through most of your classes. We are a community, a very active alumni community, as well as current students, and we do represent a diversity of perspectives. We are not a program that recruits from one particular background. We have people who are food designers, architects. I come from a management background, and then yes, we have traditional backgrounds like psychology and sociology and graphic design, but it really is spanning the gamut because experience affects everything.
And I will add that from a complex systems perspective, when you look at places like the Santa Fe Institute, in order to address these complex kinds of problems, you need multidisciplinary approaches. You have to. That's why the department at Bentley, the XD department, is multidisciplinary. Again, I'm a sociologist. You know, what do I know about user experience? I didn't study it in school. Bill Gribbons came to me and said, "Can you teach a class in ethnography?" I said, "Sure." He's like, "Okay, great." And that was it. But that's the kind of place we are. And I say that, I'm a full professor. They're not paying, well, they are paying me to say this, I guess, in a manner of speaking, but I would say it anyway. We're a place that does thrive on integrated knowledge. And I also will add to something Kyle said, along with teaching class, I work with Janelle Estes to help manage industry relationships. And so some classes, mine doesn't. I don't have teamwork in my class. People do individual projects, but some classes are built around industry partners.
Yep.
And I help along with Janelle, I use my contacts to help develop those leads. I just sent out an email today to our faculty for the spring saying, is anybody interested in an industry partner? Let me know what class you're teaching, what you're thinking, and let me see who we have. And so that's another big piece of our program is the real hands-on contact in a curated, or I don't say curated, but a supported classroom environment where you're learning from not only faculty, but from each other and from clients.
Well said.
Thank you. I try.
Oh, we have a Q&A. Let's see here. Do courses at the HFID program tend to often lean towards emerging approaches in experience design, historical approaches, or both?
You should answer that because you were in the program.
Yeah. So I think that there's absolutely evergreen, best practices and evergreen sciences that act as the foundation of the program, right? The whole concept of human factors is built around the idea that humans don't evolve rapidly, and that there are certain things that are true across age brackets, generations, cultures that inform design and experience. And so there are those elements that are baked into the program that we expect people to have, and that we hope people will continue to practice, especially faced with AI, where it isn't always up to date on why those best practices exist or why we do things the way we do them. Do we update our curriculum? Yeah, absolutely. As Gary demonstrated, he often is looking at real cases that are going on. And I mean, just in today's session, we covered something. How far back did we start with Starbucks? All the way up to 2025?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, we are always exploring. Now, education, academics, there is a little bit of a lag that happens when a curriculum is being designed, but we are always looking to incorporate that into what we teach because it's how we keep our students successful.
I see, Aviana, you had a question about now that Starbucks has closed a lot of underperforming stores, do you think it increases the chance of the remaining ones turning back to the third place they used to be? Or do you think they'll continue with their mobile approach? Well, I mean, I think mobile is essential because you're also dealing with the expectations that exist across different environments. So, yeah, they're going to continue with mobile, but they're trying to reclaim what made them unique in the first place. I will say that the fact that they are going to stay mobile only might create the opportunity for another place to emerge that might be just local. I'm not going to say it's going to rival Starbucks on an international level, but to be a quote unquote traditional place without mobile. You know what I mean? And one of the things I like to think about is the more things become digital, the more people crave analog across the board. So, are there going to be more places who do not go in that route and are vocal about why? Okay, it's one thing for me, like if I say, I refuse to be admitted into this popular club. Well, if no one's asking me, no one cares, right? It's kind of a hollow thing. So if someone's like, we're not going to do what Starbucks does, well, yeah, because they're Starbucks and you're not. But they could say, the kind of experience we're trying to create is a connected community experience in a coffee house. That's their brand, that's their point of differentiation.
I think what's interesting about this is Starbucks does this to a little bit of degree, but I don't, to your point, Gary, I don't think all the different departments that work on different things realize this. So for instance, they have Starbucks Reserve, and Starbucks Reserves are large locations with lots of plush seating, and they show you how they roast the coffee, and there's a higher end
Yeah.
bakery, and it's like those places are usually packed. And so they already are creating that experience there, but then they kind of diverge from it at other locations.
Yeah, Danica, I think you're spot on as well. A local cafe with a small business community. And that creates a lot of opportunity for innovation, quite frankly, where people can go in and it doesn't mean that you have to, turn the clock back 100 years. But it does create the opportunity to retain some of that quaintness, as we would call it, some of that nostalgia, and use that nostalgia as a way to leverage a new experience in this uh, emerging environment. To go back to these kinds of third places, I have a video on my YouTube channel about how technology destroyed, bar drinking. Essentially, bars used to be a place where you could go to a bar and people might talk to one another or talk to the bartender, and now everyone's looking at their phones. I did this video based on a story I saw. It might have been salon.com or something like that. But the ways in which mobile has disrupted or digital has disrupted co-located. And just real quick, it's interesting that, and I'll be quiet for other questions. What do you think the UX people at Starbucks are being evaluated on? Probably their mobile orders and how easy it is to order mobile. Is that the same thing as the employers are being evaluated on? Is that the same thing as the CX people are being evaluated on or the brand people are being evaluated on? One of the things I'll tell companies is show me your metrics and I'll tell you about your behavior. How can a corporation as large as Starbucks be considered part of the local community? Great question, Christopher. It can. One of the things that I looked at in my dissertation was Arab immigrant owned liquor stores in Detroit. And I should mention that my ethnic background is Arab American. In Detroit, Michigan, there's a very large population of people from the Arab world, and they also owned a lot of convenience stores. We call them party stores in Detroit. Here they'd be called Packies. And people can develop a sense of personal connection with these places of business based on the interactions that occur between themselves and the employees. That goes to customer experience and the interactions that occur. people can become regulars anywhere. People can become part of the community in a lot of different ways. Whether or not the managers are given the chance to do that, can they customize the environment to reflect the local community? It almost reminds me of the movie. Everybody ever see the movie Do the Right Thing by Spike Lee? When I teach class, Kyle will tell you it's like this. I kind of like bounce all over the place. But there's a point. At the very end of the movie, when a kind of riot happens, one of the reasons why the riot happened is that a person in the community, uh, Giancarlo Esposito from Breaking Bad, when he was younger, he didn't see any representation of the community on the wall in this Italian American establishment. Representation matters and connection matters. And there's ways. If I was Starbucks, I'd be teaching my managers how to build connection with local communities. Short answer to that. And I almost like a community development 101 to help create a better community experience so that that connection can take place. Do you need experience in a specific industry to design experiences within it? I don't think so, Alexa. I just had a podcast episode with a gentleman who wrote a book called The Wisdom of Ignorance. That if a person's a complete newcomer to a environment, that they have tremendous value because they can add things that everyone else takes for granted. They can see things that everyone else is taking for granted. They have new ideas because they're coming from outside. So there's tremendous value in having newcomers into an industry because they can see things that no one else can see. Do you choose a specific type of experience to focus on? No, we don't. We don't focus in like this is UX, this is EX. But one of the things I do see more from, and Kyle can talk about this because he is connected more to the other students. I hear from students that in their jobs, they're being expected to do more than just traditional UX.
Yeah, I will echo that. So I work a lot with alum as well, and the thing that's interesting about this program and it being based in a business school is the skills that you develop are skills for leadership. They're skills for strategy. They're skills for systems thinking, and you tend to have your hands involved in a lot of different areas, and you can create a lot of different value at a lot of different stages throughout an organization. And so, I think the more that leader, I think that, if we go back 50 plus years, UX wasn't a thing, experience design wasn't a thing. And now that you have all these organizations that are bringing on these departments and they're learning and they're seeing what value can be created by people who work in these types of roles, they start bringing them on into more things. And the skills you develop in this program make you very capable for a lot of different things. I often say that the transferable skills that you develop in this program probably prepare you better than like a traditional MBA program would.
Oh, yeah.
And as somebody who doesn't come from a UX background, who did this program, who's working in education and working on a ton of things on the back end that you don't see, I can speak firsthand that I'm not working in a traditional UX role, but the things I learned in the program are making me very successful at what I do. And so, yeah, that's
Oh,
my
100%. And I don't come from a UX role either. And, I know enough to be dangerous now, but I've learned a lot from it. And I learn a lot from the people I work with. And I'm much more of a traditional employee experience person because I study workplaces. I do sociology of work. We didn't call it employee experience. We called it unions, right? But now it's got a new name, and it's like, okay, so if I can elevate the importance of the needs of employees, and I can have students carry that with them, they can bring that to their jobs, no matter what their job description is, whether they're managing a team or leading an organization, and hopefully they're able to spread that message and have that be part of the culture of that organization.
So I appreciate everyone staying throughout the entire presentation and being so actively engaged. There is a couple of like housekeeping slides I just wanted to present real quick. So, I hope we've given you a good taste of kind of what this experience is like at Bentley and the types of collaboration and topics that we cover. For those of you who are interested in exploring, potentially applying for the program, I just wanted to cover some next steps. I am sharing the right screen, right, Gary?
Yep, you're good.
And so we use a system called Business Cast. It's a centralized application service. We have a pretty streamlined application requirements. Copy of your resume. We do like to see your LinkedIn. Business presence is huge in this environment. We require one letter of recommendation. You have the option to submit a second or third letter of recommendation. We just ask no friends or family. Typically, this is like a professor or a supervisor manager. You'll have the option to pick from a couple of different essays within the application. We are looking for effective communication. And so did you answer the question? Are you critically evaluating how you respond? Is it easy to understand? This isn't like how they traditionally have taught English for reports. We're not looking for you to break out a thesaurus and demonstrate to me your lexiconal knowledge. That is not good business. That is not effective communication. So just make sure you're being clear and concise in what you're trying to convey. GMAT GRE is now test optional. So it's not a requirement to be admitted to the program. I usually tell students the GMAT GRE is a great opportunity for you to make your application more competitive or to offset a weakness. So if you didn't perform as well as you would have liked in your undergrad, and you want to demonstrate a higher level of aptitude, a strong GMAT, a strong GRE can do that, but it is absolutely not required to be admitted. If you've completed your education outside of the US from a non-native English-speaking country, we do require an English language test score. There's also waivers available that you can request in the application. There's a few different options if you qualify for them. And then we require a copy of all transcripts from universities attended. If you've attended universities outside the United States, we ask for a NACES member course-by-course transcript evaluation. Again, there's additional information about that in the application. I'm also happy to connect with you and help you navigate that. And then finally, we like to interview everybody who's applying for the program. We do this for a variety of reasons. One, to better understand your experience and how it relates, but also to make sure we're setting you up for success. This is not like many other programs that exist. It is highly experiential. If your expectation is to show up to the classroom, be lectured at, take a test, and go home, this isn't the program for you. And so we really like to make sure we connect to make sure that we're managing expectations, that the outcomes are aligned with your career objectives. And so that's what the interview is used for. And it helps to start fostering community as well, because if I have an opportunity to connect with you, I can point you in the direction of alum or professors based on your interests. And so those are the application requirements. We know scholarship funding is a huge component that a lot of people are interested in. I'm happy to share that 85% of our applicants receive some form of scholarship. It typically ranges between 0 and 40%, and it's a competitive award. So make sure you're submitting the strongest application materials you can. That is what we use to determine scholarship. It's awarded as a per course discount. I also encourage anybody who's working to look at your company's benefits. A lot of organizations provide some type of tuition reimbursement, which can help offset the cost of attendance. There's loan providers. Again, happy to discuss this further if anyone needs support. Application deadlines, we have both our spring and fall application currently open. For spring, really try to aim for mid-December at the last deadline, because the university will close at the end of the year, doesn't open until early January. Spring semester starts the third week of January. So we just want to make sure we can get everything finalized before then. And then for the fall, we have multiple priority rounds. Effectively, what I tell people is try to get your application in before the end of January. That gives you optimal considerations for both scholarship decision. I do also want to note this is a very competitive program. For the past couple of intakes, we have reached capacity. This last intake, I was able to catch it early on and work with Janelle so that we had a few more courses offered so that we could accommodate a larger class size. And so, you know, we maintain small class sizes. We have about 25 students in the classroom on average. We do this to help foster that communication, that dialogue, that engagement. But as such, that means that there's a limited number of seats available. And so do apply early if this is something that's really interesting to you and you want to explore, because I want to make sure I can admit you rather than have to deny you just because we don't have enough seats. So connect with me if you have questions. I can support you through the whole process. I know some of you have already talked to, and so it's good to see you here. If you want to stay connected, we have YouTube, Instagram, LinkedIn. You can do consultations. You can reach out to me directly through the Applied Grad email. I can set up phone conversations, Zoom consultations. And so there's lots of different ways to stay engaged with us. Feel free to scan this with your phone, or you can just message me using Applied Grad and we can set that manually. And so I just wanted to get that out there. I know we had one more question. Oh, Virginia. Oh, of course. Thank you for joining. Any other door handle questions, comments? Any closing remarks, Gary? You're on mute.
I was to say thanks everybody. Actually, I've been talking about Starbucks for a while. That was the first time I used those slides, so you're welcome. Because I want to do something fresh for Kyle.
I appreciate it.
Yeah.
All for me, right?
That's exactly right.
Well, thank you, everyone. Thank you, Gary. I appreciate the insights, and I hope to see you all again at some type of session.